So welcome to this episode of the Clyde and Lomond Heritage Podcast with myself, Paul Murdoch, and
myself, Robert Rye.
There you go. And we're going to, this is a bit different. We've actually just played an interview with Duncan Thompson, who basically is based at Renton. You've probably seen the station there. And it's basically Robert the Bruce Heritage Centre in Renton.
The Renton Artisans.
The Renton Artisans, exactly. And Duncan gave us a really interesting interview. I mean, Duncan himself, he says himself, he's not a historian, but he's a complete enthusiast. And he knows a lot about Bruce. And he's collected a lot of information there and produced this brilliant book, which I think every school should have. It's about Robert the Bruce's life, but also his connections with pretty much every part of Scotland he passed through. If you're a tourist from America and you're doing a tour of Scotland and you wanted to know about Bruce, this is the thing to follow. Mm-hmm. But also talks about the pilgrimage they made kind of with his heart back to the Holy Land. And they
got as far as Spain.
I'm talking about the new pilgrimage, of course, yeah.
Right.
The original people got to Spain with the heart, as far as that, and then they got in
Battle
trouble.
of Tiba, yeah.
They got in trouble there. But then, all these years later, Duncan and his fellow artisans, wanted to take his heart again to the Holy Land. They actually asked Historic Scotland if they could get his heart. And they said no. But surprisingly. But they actually said, they decided then to, the story's told in an interview, they got a wooden heart made from the oak tree that probably existed in Bruce's estate at the time.
A nice bit of symbolism.
Yeah, symbolism, and they took the oak heart, which he may have, been close to Holy Land and can fulfil that wish. Yeah. This is condoned the book is by Lord Charles Bruce, the 12th Earl of Elgin, who is Bruce's descendant. So it's worth a read, and I'd say hopefully I can't speak today. Hopefully you enjoyed the interview with Duncan.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic that there are people that are in our community keeping this history alive. Mm-hmm. How many people probably in this area don't even know that Bruce was he lived in the manor of Cardross, which isn't actually Cardross or Cardross, depending on how you say it.
Not Cardross.
Yeah, no, or Cardross. No, so Cardross at that time was a parish, and it included what part of what we would know as Renton, Dalmoak, and even parts of Dalhurn, and also into parts of Dumbarton as well.
St Serve's Chapel will be part of that as well.
Absolutely, and I just think it would be interesting to know how many people are aware of that history, and without the artisans there would be even fewer. So it's worth a trip in there. If you are at Renton Station, it's even worth a trip going on purpose just to see the station and see the centre there. It's open most days, I think. I saw them at they attended the festival at the Martin Football Club, and they had a wee bit of a kind of a mock battle there, and it's always very interesting when I see them. Their uniforms and everything look very authentic.
I mean, this is kind of an addendum onto the interview, I guess, in that it made me think about things I didn't know about Bruce. Talking about the siege of Berwick and Tweed here.
Yes.
And it's basically, some things I read, there's 7,000 to 8,000 people killed. 7,000 to 8,000.
7,000 to 8,000, yeah.
So, but
and
who knows?
As the interview said, possibly 10,000. So
and like at that time, that's a lot of people.
Wow, yeah.
Considering
at the time of Bruce, here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here. But at the time of Bruce, there was roughly 400,000 people in Scotland, which is far less than a tenth of what it is now. Mm-hmm. And if you take it that Bruce, having been a Norman of Viking descent, probably originally way back, that he then was one of the generation that established the Scottish DNA. Mm-hmm. So the good news is for all us Scots that have, if we've got something like 60 or 70% Scottish Northern Irish DNA, there's a very good chance we're descended from Robert the Bruce. And people might just say, prove that. But I've got a wee photo here that you can put up on the screen that tells you how many 18 times great grandparents you have. And actually, Robert the Bruce was, in fact, of King Charles, he's the 20th great grandfather of King Charles.
Current King Charles?
Current King Charles, yeah.
Wow. Just shows you. And that, as I said, going back to the Berwick and Tweed situation, they massacred these people over 2 days or something like that.
Yes.
It's all done quite quickly. God knows how they did it. Don't even think about it. But Longshanks, Edward I put a stop to it when he saw a pregnant woman, as Duncan said, being killed, and he said, "Well, maybe that's enough."
Yeah.
I mean, it was brutal.
Times. Life was brutal. It was just how life was. It was constant wars.
Mm-hmm.
It was really overpowered land, and there was always a religious element as well. But
that was a political thing he did there as well, and that it was saying to the people of Scotland,
"Look what I can do.
This is what happens to you if you make fun of me,
indeed,
or you test me."
Yeah.
It was pretty horrible. But that would be in a lot of people's heads when they did eventually rise up.
Yes.
And get things sorted, I think.
Yeah.
One wee fact for me, I mean, as I say, I'm not a historian, I'm a person that's interested in history.
Yeah.
But when you think back to Wallace, skipping back the way, to William Wallace, and you think of him being hung, drawn and quartered and all that thing, and obviously Edward I was involved in that.
Yeah. In
my head, Edward I was involved with Bannockburn.
No,
he was dead with 1307.
Edward II. It was at Bannockburn. But Edward II is, I think, the kindest thing I could say is he certainly wasn't his father.
Aye.
The father was a much more wily and shrewd military operator.
And Edward
than his son
died in basically en route.
On way to Scotland, I think. Was it
1307?
Aye, I'm just trying to remember what he died of, but it was...
I don't know.
But yes, 1307.
Yeah, 1307 he died. Yeah, so basically, you had a bit of information you want to tell us about on top of what was discussed in the interview, didn't you? About Bruce.
Oh, I've got lots of stuff.
Well, just give it a few bits now.
Well, his background. His background was that his mother was Marjorie, Countess of Carrick, and her husband, she bestowed a title on him, the Earl of Carrick, through her marriage to him, and his name was Adam of Kilconacher, and he was from Fife.
Right.
He was a Scottish noble. Obviously, had been bestowed with this title by through his marriage to his wife, because there was no male heirs to that title, and that's what they did in those days. Okay. And what happened was that King Robert the Bruce that we know, his grandfather was away on crusade and witnessed the killing of Adam to Kilconacher, and he somehow got message to his son, who was the 6th Earl of Arundel, to go round to Marjorie, Countess of Carrick, to break the news to her that her husband had died in the 8th Crusade, and this was a crusade led by a French king. I think it was Louis IX. I would have to check that, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. So why did Robert the Bruce's grandfather tell his son to get round there and see Marjorie, Countess of Carrick?
Because it's an opportunity.
An opportunity, because they were both descended from David I and Malcolm Canmore, and also right back to Kenneth MacAlpin. But also Marjorie, Countess of Carrick, was descended from the Stuarts and the Stuarts of Scotland. So were they to have any children, they would have a very, very strong claim to the throne.
So I'm guessing the king at the time was Alexander III.
Alexander III, yeah.
He wouldn't be too keen on that.
No, well, and they knew that because Robert the Bruce, 6th Earl of Arundel, the King Robert the Bruce's father, he pitched up at probably Turnberry Castle, the home of Marjorie, Countess of Carrick, and after he delivered the very sad news, it appears that they got on like a house on fire, in more ways than one.
Okay.
And she was 7 years older than Robert the Bruce's father, so I think she perhaps had a leading role in what happened afterwards. But this is just very quickly, Alexander III did not give permission. Right. They married in secret, but it did not affect Bruce's claim, because by the time Bruce was up and about at 18 years old, Alexander III was long gone.
Of course, at 1718, Bruce was down jousting in London. Apparently, according to Duncan, he was down.
Not in 1718.
No, 17 years of age.
Oh,
17, 18 years of age.
Right.
Oh, that would be a big jump.
Yeah.
No, so he was down there involved in the court already and things like that, and a bit of a champion.
Well, there are rumours persist that he was actually born in Essex, that Robert the Bruce was born in Essex, somewhere near Tottenham, which is now in North London, and I think that's unlikely, but
because I had read he was born in Turnberry. But
yes, well, that's the general conventional wisdom now. But Writtle, Writtle, was one of the places, and that's reputedly where his father was born.
So, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to ask you a question, just to go off tangent. Of course, that's what we like doing.
Yes, we do.
What is the connection between Lady in Red and Robert the Bruce?
Now, I think I might know this because by complete accident I have seen Chris de Burgh 3 times in concert. Now, once because my wife wanted to go when we were just not long going out with each other, and twice as support to other bands. I think one was Supertramp, and I can't really remember. I can't remember who the other one was. But in the programme for that concert, it said that Chris de Burgh was descended from Elizabeth de Burgh, who was the wife of Robert the Bruce and daughter of the Earl of Ulster?
Second Earl of Ulster.
Yeah.
But just to go back a wee bit into his marriage situation, or his marriages, Bruce, I mean, I think he, according to we were talking earlier on in the kitchen, apparently had a few wee affairs here and there.
Yes, yeah.
But he had a couple of 2 official marriages. The first one was to Isabella de Mar.
Yes.
And she was quite young when they married. And unfortunately,
about 13.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the thing that was done in those days.
Yeah, well, the age of majority was 12 for boys and 14 for girls.
And they had Marjorie. She was born in 1296.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Isabella de Mar died the same time. Well, they said she died during childbirth. It's not clear whether she actually died during childbirth or shortly after it.
Right.
But she died the same year anyway.
Yeah.
As Marjorie was born. Obviously, Marjorie survived.
And actually, as a continuation of that story, Marjorie was thrown from a horse in what is now Paisley.
Right.
And she was carrying the future King Robert II.
Right.
And the horse threw her just about where the big B&Q is now as you come off the motorway. Right? And there was enough knowledge among the monks at Paisley Abbey to perform a caesarean section on Marjorie Bruce, daughter of King Robert the Bruce.
Yeah.
She'd married Walter Stewart. Bruce had given her hand in marriage to Walter Stewart as a reward for his loyalty. So they managed to do the caesarean section on Marjorie, who died in the accident. They managed to save the Robert Stewart, who became King Robert II, but they'd one of them in their operating procedure had just scratched his eye a wee bit, and he was known as King Bleary because the eye was quite obviously affected. I don't know if he could see at all out of the eye, in fact, but he was king. So anybody that wants to check that, if you come off the M8 where the big B&Q is and head into Paisley, on your left hand side there's a huge stone mound with a plaque on it that commemorates that.
Well, that's really interesting because we've talked about the first wife briefly, who was Marjorie's mum, Isabella de Mar, but his second wife was Elizabeth de Burgh. Getting back to the Chris de Burgh link, who's the direct descendant apparently of the Earls of Ulster. But they got in real trouble. He married. He married Elizabeth de Burgh in 1302. She was only 13 as well when they got married, and basically King Edward I, after 1306, he was up at the Battle of Methven, which the Scots were defeated. And Elizabeth and Marjorie, their stepdaughter, and Bruce's sister as well, they fled to Bruce's brother's castle in Kildrummy, up near Aberdeenshire. Up in Aberdeenshire, sorry. And they basically hid there. I mean, Bruce was on the run after that battle. Just told us a story about
the Hebrides.
They did the Hebrides and helped out by Angus Og. I mean, all that was discussed by Duncan.
Not the Angus Og that was once in the Daily Record.
I don't think so. No. Different to the people. But they got to Kildrummy Castle. Of course, the English pursued them up to the castle and laid siege to the castle. And of course, the women folk were in there. They knew they were important. And obviously, Bruce's brother, Niall, who's called Nigel, I think, as well, was in the castle. And after while the siege, they actually bribed the blacksmith of the castle.
Right.
He said they could give him his weight in gold if they could he actually set the granary on fire, and they got in, and they hung Drew quarter every male in the castle, including Bruce's brother, which wouldn't have went down well, I wouldn't have thought.
No.
And
brutal times,
and the women were dispersed. Well, the women were snuck out before the siege broke, and they went north. I think it was to Athol, with the Earl of Athol, to a castle. But then they were captured in Tain. I'm just trying to think who it was that captured them again. I think it was the Earl of Ross.
Right.
Got them back to King Edward.
Right.
So they only had a brief escape. Earl of Athol, for his troubles, was get the chop, and his head was displayed in London Bridge.
Right, that was a common thing.
Yeah. But the girls were all dispersed. Marjorie was sent to a nunnery. Obviously, she survived to become,
mother of Robert II. Yeah.
But what was I going to say? But his sister, Robert Bruce's sister, and a few of the lassies that were in the party were caged in wooden cages hung from Berwick. Berwick and Tweed castle walls.
That's right.
And what else? Elizabeth herself was imprisoned with just 3 attendants. Very hard times, But she had slight preferential treatment because her father was the Earl of Ulster, who was a good friend of
Edward I.
Edward I. Yeah. And Edward I still needed his help, so she was imprisoned rather than anything nasty happening to her. I think
a kind of Ghislaine Maxwell situation, maybe.
Who knows? Kind of weird, horrible situation. And she only got out after the Battle of Bannockburn. She was a hostage trade. Yeah,
there was a treaty after the Battle of Bannockburn, and probably it would have been one of the conditions.
She had an audience with King Edward II. And he basically exchanged her for one of the earls. I think it was the Earl of Hereford or something like that.
The interesting thing about we do talk about this brutal society and all the wars and battles, but there are other things to consider about Robert the Bruce in that he was a highly educated man for his time. Obviously, nobles and kings did have that privilege, but he had more than a working knowledge of Latin,
right?
And he could probably speak Scots, which was a language derived from Middle English. Believe it or not, I know a lot of folk won't like that, but it was. And he also spoke English and through his mother's side Gaelic, because she was from the Gaelic side.
And you said French, didn't you?
I didn't say French, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised
because of that whole Norman thing was still on the go, really. Just getting back to your falling off the horse story. Strangely, Elizabeth de Burgh died falling off a horse near Cullen, near Banff in Banffshire.
Right, okay.
At the age 38, I think she was.
Wow.
And that was 2 years before Bruce himself passed away. Which asked the question, Bruce passed away
1329,
2 years later, right? And he was in Cardross, right? And she was riding about in Cullen 2 years previously.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be, I suppose he travelled about in between.
I don't think, and also how reliable are, if you were to forensically examine every story about Robert the Bruce, especially the one about the spider, then you would.
Just getting back to her falling off the horse and passing away at Cullen. Cullen skink.
Cullen skink, one of my favourites. I love it.
Great soup with smoked haddock and cream and stuff. Anyway, they actually weren't sure her body would arrive safely. They were transporting it back to Dunfermline, I think.
Dunfermline,
So they took her. This seems to be a theme. They took her organs out and supposedly buried them at Cullen. Just so some part of her would still be there in case her body never made it.
Right.
Because all sorts of
because I always wondered about that. The viscera.
Of course, Bruce's viscera buried at St Cerce in Leiden Grove.
Yeah.
And his heart, Melrose Abbey. His body, Dunfermline.
Apparently they dug up his heart and then at one time, and they reburied it at a mystery spot so that nobody would find it.
And of course, getting back to the story of the artisans who actually want to take his real heart.
Yes.
They must still know. Somebody knows who it is, maybe.
No, well, I don't know. I suppose in these days of metal detectors and things like that, because it was in a casket.
Right.
I'm not sure. Probably a lead casket, but you can get detectors that'll detect lead. But we don't want to be giving anybody.
Can anybody find Bruce's heart by next episode? That'd be quite a challenge. Throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So who knows? Yeah. So that's just all these coincidences. People falling off horses and
But I mean, horsemanship and swordsmanship were two of the skills that were taught to Bruce by probably his household relatives, his uncles and his grandfather or whoever. And he had, because he knew Latin, it gave him education in religion, history, law, philosophy, and chivalry. And when we're talking about the Battle of Methven, which I think we're going to go on to, is that the English, the Earl of Pembroke,
1306.
The Earl of Pembroke, he was actually Welsh, so he actually had the flag of the dragon ahead. Now that's for what was at the time an English force. That was almost like flying the Jolly Roger.
Right.
We're not going to be adhering to the laws of chivalry here. We've got the.
Is that what that meant?
That's what that meant. And when they met, it was on a Sunday, and Bruce and the Earl of Pembroke said, "No, we can't fight. It's too late.
That's right.
We'll fight you in the morning."
Aye.
But
it didn't specify
Bruce.
a time.
Bruce then, he and his troops then went somewhere just out of Perth and made their bed for the night, and of course the English attacked them in the middle of the night.
Just after midnight or something, but in between midnight and dawn. They didn't specify when they were going to fight in the morning. That was the problem.
No, that's right.
But it took them a surprise, and that was a disaster, really.
It
set things back quite a bit, I thought.
Well, Bruce was quite unpopular at the time in Scotland. There was a lot more support for John Balliol, who had been the appointee king of Edward Longshanks. And the other thing that happened in 1306, after the Battle of Methven, and by this time Bruce had been crowned King of Scotland, but there was a lot of unhappiness about that. Comyn, who had betrayed Bruce to the English, Bruce and he met at a church in Dumfries, and
Dunfermline, was it not?
No, Dumfries. Definitely at Dumfries. Okay. And a scuffle broke out because Bruce had rightly accused him of betraying him to Edward I.
And the scuffle was in the chapel itself.
The ensuing scuffle and stabbing. Some folks say it was Bruce that stabbed him. Others say Bruce had knocked him to the floor and some of his men rushed in and stabbed him. We don't know, but it was a horrendous calumny for the Pope.
It's heretical, basically, wasn't it?
Well, you don't kill somebody in God's house.
No.
That's just a no-no. But the good thing for Bruce was the Scottish nobility. Some of them continued to support him, and also the Scottish Church, the Bishop Wishart and a few others.
But of course, nowadays they would call that's fake news. It's just propaganda to make them look bad. I never did anything in the church.
No, I never did anything. No.
Aye,
but Comyn was a supporter of Balliol, and he paid the price for that, and also for betraying Bruce.
But Bruce was highly unpopular after that, obviously, by a certain section.
He was highly unpopular with
population.
Yes, but amazingly, some of the bishops, like the Bishop of St Andrews and the Bishop of Dunfermline, etc., were still behind him, because I think they probably recognised his guile and cunning and things like that.
Maybe they saw the way things would eventually go.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
There's a lot of that in those days. People had to guess,
switch sides,
who was going to win, and switch sides a lot of times. Anyway, listen, I think we'll maybe not go on too long here, but I think it was nice to listen to. If you haven't heard the interview with Duncan, please listen to it. It's on previous to this. And I'm sure we'll come back to talk about Bruce in future episodes.
We'll have there's definitely another episode in there.
Easy.
We've
not even reached Bannockburn yet.
We've not even got to Bannockburn,
no.
or the aftermath of Bannockburn, if you like, and how Bruce probably, how he became the most revered Scottish king in history.
Yeah. And of course, the whole reason for doing this on Bruce was because I'd visited the Artisan Heritage Centre in Renton, and of course Bruce ended his days, we think, near Dalmoke.
Well, I'll get one more interesting wee thing just before we end there, Paul, is that my aunt and uncle owned a farm at Dalmoke, and it was called the Mains of Cardross. Now that translates to the Manor of Cardross, and they used to get quite a lot of archaeologists and people up, and they're spending time asking them about the landscape and things like that, and asking for permission to dig. And
they did some excavation at Dalhurn when they took down the old warehouses and things there, and they found lime mortar that dated back to the kind of
but remembering that a king would have buildings and such like befitting of his status, and it's that far back that
it might even be some wooden structure there as well. Hard to discern, but it's probably not been enough. Look, real proper examination.
Well, we can do that in the next. We can do some of it in the next. Whether it will be our next podcast, but it might be a wee bit down the line. But there's lots of interesting things and stories that involved in that.
And there's all sorts of off routes and shoots you can take.
But one more thing, one more thing.
Go for it.
Well, the only Bruce before Bannockburn in 1311 liberated Dumbarton Castle.
Right.
So Dumbarton Rock was then, and by the time of the Battle of Bannockburn, only one Scottish castle was in the control of the English, and the Scots had already done a deal with the commander at Stirling Castle that he would. De Mowbray, I can't remember his first name.
I bet he was looking over the battlement, seeing how it was going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hold it.
I know you're fine.
Hold the horses. No, okay, so listen, we'll be back again in our episode of Crazy Conjecture, but some facts in there as well.
Some facts, we always like to
and
put
a
some
wee bit of
facts
entertainment, hopefully, and until next time, bye for now.
Thank you, bye.